Hi. So today is the first lesson when we actually start our Dragon Scale Shawl. And what I wanted to show you was when you start your shawl, I'm going to show you a few things, but I wanted to keep this on me so you can kind of see what we're doing. When you start your shawl, you're going to have to make sure that it fits around your shoulders, and this will stretch quite a bit. And it's double because I have it to go on the back too. So, okay, let's get started on other things. I'll be right back. Okay, so the yarn I got was called a Chroma Fingering weight from Knit Picks, and I was a little disturbed with it because when I held it up to a regular fingering weight yarn, it's pretty thin when I started. I have noticed, I don't know if you can see it, but it gets thicker in places and then thinner in places, so I'm gonna soldier through. I got 5 of them because I didn't know how many we were gonna need. It has 396 yards in it. It's 100 grams, which that's basically sock yarn, fingering yarn, so it should be okay. So the other thing that I did was, again, you want to make sure that it will kind of loop down and then fit around your shoulders and go around the back. But since I'm using fingering yarn, I started with a size G. Now normally this fingering yarn, they tell you to use a size B through E. And I am going to work down to that, but I started with a G because as we get our scales kind of go like this. I don't know if you can see them. There we go. Our scales kind of go like this, and then they get overlapped on the next row, and they keep doing that the whole way up. They keep getting overlapped. So if I start with a G and do 2 rows of G, then go to an F and do 2 rows of F, and then maybe go to an E, it'll start, the scales will start getting smaller. So that's what I did. If you're using worsted, you might want to start with an H, go to a G, and then go down to an F. Okay, so the other thing that I want to explain to you is when you chain a great big long chain like this, it's very hard to make sure that you don't get it twisted. So what I did when I got to the end, I just kept my links up and I kept feeling my way through, and I kept my needle in the end, and as I got around it, I just made sure that all of my links were up. See, there's a hook on the back, and then there's a link on the front. And I did that. I felt my way through the whole thing until I could join it. And that way I'm sure that it didn't get twisted in the back. So I'm ready to start. I've gone ahead and joined my chain. And then I've done a chain 4 because that's the beginning V of our first hook. And I'm going to close that up, and that makes my first V. Chain 4 and then a double crochet in that same space. I'm going to skip 2 in the middle, and I'm going to make a V, which consists of a double crochet, a chain 1, and then another double crochet in that same space. So we have 2. And I'm going to do it again with you. And this was supposed to be brown instead of black, and it's black. But with crochet, it won't be as hard to see as it is with knitting. Knitting, I can't knit with black. Okay, so I'm going to skip 2 in my chain. I'm going to double crochet in that 3rd chain. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to double crochet in the same space. Now, you're going to do that the whole way around your chain. and there's going to be quite a few. And remember, I told you that the number of chains that you cast on has to be divisible by 6. So I started with 180 chains, and that wasn't enough to go around my shoulders, so I went ahead and added to 240, and then that worked. That goes around my shoulders. So this is going to be, if you're doing a worsted, you won't have to cast on as many. It'll go a little bit faster too, but also remember, you still have to have the total number of chains that you've done divisible by 6, because we're using 3 chains for each V, and then we have to have 2 V's for each dragon scale. So 2 times 3 is 6, so make sure that your number is divisible by 6. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my first row of V's finished, and I will be back to help you with the next section when we make dragon scales. Okay, so once you have all of your V's made, you might want to go back and count them before you attach, because we're going to attach this as our first row with a slip stitch. But you might want to go through and count them, and then also you want to make sure that you don't get this twisted. It's very easy to twist this first row. So go through and make sure that they're all lined up the same way. And I have 80 V stitches, which is what you want. You want a multiple of 2 for your V stitches. So then I'm going to, my last V, I have 2 stitches between my last V and my first V. I'm going to go ahead and count up that first chain, 1, 2, and in the third chain, I'm going to slip stitch these together so that it makes a complete circle. The other way that I just thought about before I came back was you could actually make your chain a long chain, and instead of connecting it, you could instead of making it in a circle like I did, connecting it here, you could just make it one long chain and then go ahead and do your first row of V stitches. Then when you come back to the first row, you could use your tail to connect the chain row together. That way you're sure not to get it twisted. It'd be a little bit easier, but it's just if you're very careful, you can do it this way. This is not a problem. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make our first dragon scale. If you've watched my mitten video, the ones that we did before this series, you'll know how to do this, and you can just get started and get busy. But if not, then I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to make dragon scales, and it's going to take 2 of these V's to make 1 dragon scale, and I will show you why in just a minute. But since you've already connected to this, we can go ahead and start our first double crochet. And I chain 2. Some people chain 3 to make a double crochet. I chain 2. So that counts as my first double crochet. Then I'm going to turn my yarn so that I just have the first side of my V. I'm going to be working on that, and I'm going to put 4 double crochets in there. Now remember, that first chain counts as a double crochet, so we want a total of 5 double crochets in this first side. So that means I'm crocheting 4 double crochets plus my first chain is 5. So once we have a total of 5, I'm going to go ahead and do a chain 1, and then I'm going to turn it to the second half of my V, and I pretty much just kind of hold that as if it were the chain. So let's do 1. We're going to do 5 double crochets in here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we don't have to do anything. We're just going to start double crocheting, but we're going to skip that second V and we're going to go to the third one. And we're doing front posts. And that means instead of crocheting in each of these stitches, we're using our double crochet as our actual, almost like our chain stitch. So I go behind it and around it, and then I'm going to do 5 double crochets around that stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5, chain 1 at the bottom, and then we're going to use the second half of our V for the second part of our scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's pull some yarn so we don't unravel that. Let me explain to you. So you actually need that middle V to kind of space your dragon scales out. And so you're going to do that the whole way around. You're going to go ahead and after you have a dragon scale, you're going to skip the next V and do your next dragon scale around this V. Skip, dragon scale, skip, dragon scale, skip, and so forth until you get to the end. Now, once you have made your last dragon scale, you should have one more V to skip, and you will connect them with a slip stitch. I know this is hard yarn to see because it's so dark. You will connect them in that last chain. When you did your chain 3 to start your dragon scale, you're going to do a slip stitch there, and that will connect your first row. So I will be back to show you how to start your next row of V's. All right. Okay, so we're just about ready to finish up this first row of dragon scales, and I did do mine, but since it's so dark and it doesn't show up real well, I did a little, just a sample so that I can show you this the stitches. So I'm at the last dragon scale, and pretty much I have to turn it upside down to do this, and you might have a better way, so do it your way. But I turn upside down and I find the chains, the 1-2 chains, and I kind of grab onto that last chain that I made, and then I can flip it back to the right side, and I just go ahead and I do a slip stitch. Now, as you look at these, there's a little triangle in between your original V stitch and then the dragon scale. So what you want to do is you want to find the dragon scale, and that's where we're going to go ahead and we're going to slip stitch into one of those dragon scales, just one of the back stitches, and then I'm going to slip stitch in the first opening of a scale, and then again I'm going to chain. Now we want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we want to do a double crochet in that same space, and that's the start of our V's. Now if you've watched the mitten videos, you can do this by yourself, but the second V, what we have to do is we have to get it into the V behind but around the dragon scale. So I go around that, and then I look on the other side to make sure that I have both of those caught, and I make another V. Chain 1, double crochet, and then we just do V's across. In the space, the eye of the scale, we do a V, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then again you're going to try and catch both the scale and the V and make a V stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now you're going to do that the whole way around, and when you get to the beginning part, and I'm just going to do this because I don't have many dragon scales on here. I will show you what we do to set up for our next dragon scale, because this is our base. Doing the V's is actually our base, and it sets us up for the spacing that we need for our dragon scales. But what you have to be aware of once you are ready to start the dragon scale row is you don't want your dragon scales laying on top of each other. You want them offset. So the next scale we're going to do is in between two scales, and I will show you how we do that. I'm just about at the end. We had so much snow. It's very pretty, but it's also very treacherous out there. Okay, and I'm on my last V. The last V is always a little bit tricky because of your slip stitches. So I just go on the other side and make sure that I'm in the V. Okay, so once you've done your last V, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to count up on the original chain 4. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. And in the third chain, I'm going to make a slip stitch. Now, we don't want to put another dragon scale in this V like we did the first one. So we're going to have to slip stitch. And what I do is I slip stitch into the V, I slip stitch into the double crochet, and then I slip stitch into the chain that's across there, and then I will slip stitch around the V that's between. And you can see these are the scales, and this is the V I want to be working on next. So I'm going to slip stitch around that V, and then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then 4 more double crochets in this first one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do your chain 1, and then we're going to turn it and work up the other side of the V. 1, 2, 3. I'm having a little bit of a hard time. 4, 5. Okay, so I just did that to show you. What you can see is then that dragon scale it's just really trying to be naughty. I'm sorry. That dragon scale is in between 2 dragon scales below it. Okay, hold on. Yeah, my focus is really bad. I do apologize. So what you want to do is you're going to go ahead and do that around, and then the next row will be V's like we did this row. And you're going to do that as many times for as deep as you want your shawl to be. Now I'm going to close this video, this tutorial, and I'm going to work on mine until I'm ready to do the neckline. And when I come back, when you're ready to do your neckline, when you've gotten yours as long as you want it to be and you're ready to do your neckline, then we are going to have to learn how to decrease. So go ahead and work on your dragon scales for the next few days, and I will meet you back here in a few days. Bye-bye.